And that's when I started to understand or realize that you know, we're magnificent. And basically, I also felt the connection that all of us are actually connected. We're all one. We're all part of one consciousness. You know, we are all facets of God, or we can call it whatever we like, but we are all one consciousness. We're all one, and we're all connected. I started to also feel, as I was aware of what was happening, like, to my body and my family that was around me and my brother who had arrived in Hong Kong, I started to realize that I was able to feel all their emotions. Once I was without my body, from that perspective, it's like our bodies make us feel separate. But without the body, we're not separate. We're all one. Whatever I do, whatever I feel affects you, and it affects everybody. And so in that state, it's very, very heightened, and I could feel everything that every doctor and every nurse was feeling. I could feel everything that my brother, my mother, my husband, whatever they were all feeling. It was like I could feel their emotions.
Was it because you wanted to, or was it just coming to you?
It was just coming to me. It was just coming to me, but it was like, as soon as my awareness was on them, I was feeling it. If my awareness was not focused on them, then I wouldn't feel it. But whatever or whoever I focused my awareness on, it's like you become them, because it's like when I was, you can imagine how difficult this is, because our language just doesn't have the right words.
But you're doing such a wonderful job.
Thank
I'm
you.
sure it's limiting for you, but for us it opens up really a lot. So, and you've shared your story, so I know that more is you're able to formulate it in some ways that you were probably not able to before. So it's such a blessing.
Thank you. I just hope to be able to help other people who are listening.
Mm-hmm.
It's like our body restricts us, and without our body, we can be everywhere. Or I felt as though I was everywhere at the same time. You know, I was here, there, and everywhere, not restricted to one spot. And because there's no restriction, there's no boundary, I mean, there's this sense of amazing freedom. And you're not even restricted. You're not restricted by time, space, boundaries, walls, but you're not even restricted by other people's physical bodies, because the only thing that's real is our emotions. It's love. It's our emotions. It's what we feel. That's the only thing that's real. And that was what I felt from each person, was their emotion. It's like you go beyond the body. So whenever I had my awareness on anyone, it was beyond their physical body. All I felt was their emotion.
So were you connected directly to their soul, or were you seeing also their physical perspective, their pain and suffering from you having passed away?
I was like I was able to feel their emotions, what they were feeling at that time, to an extent. And this carried on, because even after I came out of the coma, the feeling didn't just disappear. For the many weeks subsequent to that, I mean, even while I was in the hospital and while the doctors were treating me and the nurses were treating me, I was just, I could just feel that whatever they were doing, they felt they were doing what was best. I could just feel nothing but compassion for them. It was like I knew them. I felt as though I knew them. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I'm jumping ahead, but the doctors were conducting tests, which I didn't want them to conduct. And I was telling them, you don't need to conduct any more tests, because I know I'm fine. I know you're not going to find anything. You're just doing it to satisfy your own mind. You're not doing it for me. But at the same time, I felt a level of compassion towards them for needing to do this. And I let them, and I just let them. And I thought, I know I'm fine. And so I'm just going to let them, because I know now that I'm really invincible.
Mm-hmm. And you were able to verify some information later. But tell us about that choice first before coming back and everything that happened afterwards. Tell us, because it's quite spectacular.
So then what happened is that I realized I had a choice of whether to come back or not, as I mentioned. And first I chose that I didn't want to come back. And then when I started to understand the magnificence of who we really are and who I really am, and that my purpose hadn't been fulfilled, I then felt my father again. And he was really key in this, because he said to me, he communicated to me, he said that it's not your time yet. You should go back. And I felt at that time, in that moment, I felt, I don't want to go back into that body. I really don't want to go back. It's too painful. And then in that moment, I seemed to understand, and it could have been my father communicating this to me, or, it could have been the source that connects all of us. But I seemed to immediately in that moment understand that now that I knew the truth of who I am and what my purpose is, that my body would heal very quickly, that my body would just reflect this truth, that the body is not the real me. Now that I've discovered the real me, who I really am, the body would just reflect that. And I seemed to understand that. And I also felt the presence of many other beings, including my best friend who had passed away from cancer. I felt her presence, and I had missed her a lot before then, but she was there, and it was just really good to see her, to sense her there. And I sensed her presence, and she was like really at peace, totally at peace, and that felt really good, because it was like feeling like you're embraced, and just being like you're surrounded by this ocean of unconditional love. And and then I came to a point where my father actually said to me, "This is as far as you can go."
Oh.
And he said, "If you go any further than this, you won't be able to turn back." And he said, "Now I want you to go back and live your life fearlessly." And it was after that I started to wake up from the coma.
And then in that moment, were you told, I thought you were told that all the reports will be clear and everything will be clear, or did you come to that understanding as you were choosing?
That was part of my understanding as I was choosing, as I started to understand that my body would reflect the truth, what I now knew, which was the truth of who I really am. I then started to realize that, or I started to understand that my body would heal, but not just heal, but it would heal very rapidly, and it would be a total healing. I understood that. And I also understood that I had a purpose, but I understood that I wouldn't have to work hard at figuring out my purpose. I just had to be myself and allow, and the purpose would unfold before me.
What a beautiful lesson for all of us. Another one.
Thank you. And that was the biggest thing I learned, was that I just had to go and be myself and live life with abandon, and my purpose would unfold before me. Just had to allow it, that's all. Not pursue it, but allow it.
So from what I read too, Anita, you had a sense of, or you still have a sense of being invincible.
Yeah,
Tell us more about that.
It's been an amazing journey, because everything I felt and sensed has just been confirmed after I came back, because as I started to awaken, I was in a real blur when I started to come out of the coma. It was like I had one foot on each side. I didn't really understand what was happening. And then I saw my brother was there. My husband was really ecstatic, and he had been whispering to me all through while I was in the coma. He was like whispering, standing. He was by my side. He never left my side because he didn't want to miss in case I had my last breath. And he'd been whispering that I'm waiting for you, come back, come back. And when I came out of it, he was there. My mom was there. My brother was standing there. And then when I saw my brother, I said, hey, I knew you were here. You made it. And then he looked at me and he said, how did you know? And but he was like smiling when they were kind of like really happy, saying, she's awake, her eyes are opening. And they started to call the doctor. And the doctor was a doctor that I had never seen before I entered the hospital in the coma. So when he came in and I called him by name, I said, good morning, Dr. Chan. And first he said, oh, wow, you're up. I'm so glad. And then he said, but how did you know my name? And I said, aren't you the doctor that saw me when I came into the hospital? And he said, but you were in a coma. Your eyes were closed. How could you couldn't have seen me? And I said, I really had no idea I was in a coma because I could see everything. I said, I was in a coma? I really had no idea. And then he said, I came in to tell you good news. I came in to tell you that your organs have started functioning. And I looked at him and I said, but I knew that already. And he said, what do you mean you knew that? And then, and my family were like really happy. They looked at him and they said, they are? And he said, yeah, it's really unusual. It's miraculous. We never expected this, and that's really good news. And so then he just looked at me and he said, you better just get some rest. And then he left the room, and I said to my family, why did he look so shocked? Isn't he the doctor telling that?